We remember images of screaming crowds and swooning females, but the ladies who married into the Beatles empire stole the hearts of the Fab Four and gave meaning to their songs. They included socialites, runaways, hairstylists, actresses, and artists. They were shy and courageous, explorers ready to try free love and LSD, and housewives who wasted their time trying to keep their privacy. Each one observed her husband's celebrity and the temptations it brought, and each responded differently to the challenge, some by forgiving, others by accepting, and others by walking away. Today, we'll discuss the Beatles Wives, but first, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let's get the party started. Wives of John Lennon, Cynthia Powell. In 1957, John met Cynthia Powell, his future wife, in a calligraphy class at Liverpool College of Art. Lennon would regularly bring his guitar into class, disguised as a teddy boy, to serenade the girls. He complimented another girl in class, telling her she looked like Bridget Bardot, which Cynthia overheard. Cynthia colored her hair blonder and quickly drew John's attention, dubbing herself Miss Hoylake after the upscale Liverpool neighborhood she hails. They started dating in 1958 when Cyn went to see the Beatles in Hamburg during one of their famous residencies, and she became pregnant about the same time. In 1962, they married, with Brian Epstein, their manager, serving as best man. Julian, later of Hey Jude fame, was born in 1963, right in the middle of Beatlemania. Cynthia was concealed from the screaming fans and treated horribly by Lennon as his star rose and the trappings of fame took over. After the disastrous retreat to Rishikesh in 1968, their marriage came to an end. Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono, a Japanese conceptual artist residing in New York, was a friend of McCartney's who met John Lennon at an exhibition in London in 1966. Cynthia discovered Yoko's letters soon before the Lennons departed for India, and the two began corresponding. Yoko Ono was a consistent presence in the Beatles' final years together. They married in Gibraltar in 1969 and held their famous week-long bed-in for peace in Amsterdam during their honeymoon. They wrote Give Peace a Chance during a second bed-in in Montreal, collaborating as the Plastic Ono Band. In 1970, the Beatles relocated to New York after their breakup. After a lost weekend, 1973 to 1975, during which Lennon began a romance with personal assistant May Pang, the two reconciled, and son Sean was born in 1975. John and Yoko were together until the very end, with Ono standing next to him when he was assassinated. Yoko Ono, 88, has passed over her commercial interests in the Beatles and John Lennon to her son, Sean. Sean Yoko Lennon was named a director at 8 firms affiliated to Yoko and the Beatles last month in December 2021. Insiders believe Yoko Ono, who is sick and in a wheelchair, is slowing down. Having the sickness has taught me so much. I'm glad I went through it. While it's unclear what disease she was referring to, a source close to her staff told the New York Post that Ono, now 88, is still ill, requires round-the-clock care, and rarely leaves her huge apartment in the Dakota. Wives of Paul McCartney. Jane Asher. Jane Asher, an actress and TV presenter, first interviewed the Beatles at the Royal Albert Hall when she was 17 years old, and began a relationship with famed lyricist and Beatles bass player Paul McCartney not long after. He quickly moved into the Asher family's posh London mansion, and Redhead Jane was the idea for love songs like And I Love Her and We Can Work It Out. When Paul and Jane announced their engagement on Christmas Day, 1967, they broke hearts worldwide. Asher traveled with Paul and the other Beatles partners on their historic trip to India, when things took a turn for the worst. Jane came home from work early one day in early 1968 to find Paul in bed with superfan Francie Schwartz. She abruptly stopped their relationship. Asher went on to have a successful career writing cookery and fancy dress books, including one I cherished as a child. She died of cancer on April 1, 2015. Linda Eastman. Linda Eastman, a photographer for Rolling Stone magazine, met McCartney at a party celebrating the release of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in 1967 while on a photo assignment. After his engagement to Asher ended, Paul re-encountered Linda in New York and invited her and her little daughter Heather to reside with him in London, and the rest is history. Paul attributed the lovely Linda with helping him get over the Beatles' breakup, dedicating the magnificent Maybe I'm Amazed to her when the couple married in 1979. Paul and Linda had 3 additional children, Mary, Stella, and James before fleeing to Scotland, where they became our foremost Fair Isle knitwear connoisseurs. Paul taught Linda to play the keyboard after being inspired by their surroundings, and the two went on to establish Wings, one of the most successful British bands of the 1970s. Linda McCartney was an animal rights activist who became one of the country's most prominent vegetarians, a cause she championed until her untimely death in 1998. Wives of Ringo Starr, Maureen Cox. Maureen Mo Cox, a hairdresser, was a regular at Liverpool's legendary Cavern Club and had her first kiss with drummer Richard Starkey, who was just 15 years old. Cox was threatened by envious fans when she began dating Ringo Starr at the height of Beatlemania, and she had to abandon her work to stay with him. Her parents had to grant their permission for her to go on vacation to Greece with Ringo, Paul, and his girlfriend Jane Asher, because she was still so young. Mo fell pregnant with her son, Oasis musician Zach Starkey, and the pair married in 1965, having two more children, Jason and Lee. The Stars followed the Beatles on their journey to India, but theirs only lasted 10 days due to food and insect complaints. Their marriage suffered as a result of the Beatles' breakup, as they divorced in 1973 when Maureen had an affair with George Harrison, the band's brother. In 1975, they divorced. She died at the age of 48, surrounded by her family, including her children, husband, and Starr. Barbara Bach. Barbara Bach's breakthrough role as Bond girl Anya Amasova with Roger Moore in The Spy Who Loved Me in 1979 marked her as an international fashion model and actor. Barbara grew up in New York. There's a theme here, and modeled before going to acting, similar to Ringo. Starr took his hand at theater, while his fellow Beatles made solo albums, and sparks sparked when the two were cast in Caveman, a cave language slapstick farce. Their hot relationship bloomed, and they married in 1981. During the 1980s, the pair lived an excess jet-set lifestyle until they pressed the reset button and are now a model of healthy living. Barbara Bach now lives with her husband in a reasonably tranquil and light life after retiring from modeling. When Ringo is not on tour, the two spend their time at their homes in London, Los Angeles, and Monaco. Barbara Bach has a lifelong passion for modeling, which she started at a young age. After decades of service, she is now retired. Aside from being married to one of the world's most famous rock stars, she now leads a relatively private existence. While Bach and Starr frequently walk the red carpet together at events, they keep their personal lives private. When Starr and Bach celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary in April 2021, he made an exception, sharing a photo from their wedding day. "The love of my life said yes, 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 40 years ago today." Starr added. George Harrison and Paul McCartney, fellow Beatles, were also present to commemorate the occasion. Wives of George Harrison, Pattie Boyd. Among famous British supermodels Twiggy and Jean Shrimpton, Pattie Boyd embodied the look and attitude of swinging London in the 1960s, modeling for Mary Quant and Ossie Clark. Boyd, who was only 19 years old at the time, stepped into acting and was hired as a schoolgirl in the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night in 1964, rapidly forming a close friendship with the guitarist. Pattie and George, a flower power couple, married in 1966. She inspired him to write the exquisite Something. Boyd was the polar opposite of Cynthia Lennon and Maureen Cox, who were both homemakers. She was introduced to marijuana by Harrison, and she was with the Beatles when their dentist, John Riley, fed them coffee laced with LSD, according to Boyd. When they returned, she resumed modeling, and her marriage to George crumbled. She had an affair with Ronnie Wood in 1973, while George had an experience with the aforementioned Maureen Starkey. She left Harrison for his best friend, Eric Clapton, in 1974, whom she later married and was the inspiration for the smash song Layla. Pattie Boyd, 74, lives with her developer husband, Rod Weston, in West Sussex. Olivia Arias. Following the breakup of the band, George went solo and founded Dark Horse Records. Olivia Arias, a secretary for a record business in Hollywood, began working for Harrison solely after several long-distance phone calls with the former Beatle, and the spiritual couple soon fell in love. Olivia and George married a month after their son Danny was born in 1978, and they lived in the wonderful Friar Park in Henley-on-Thames, tending to its huge opulent gardens, well worth a Google, and traveling the world. Olivia rescued her husband's life when an attacker stormed into their home and attacked him in 1999, and they remained dedicated to each other until George died in 2001. Since her husband died in 2001, Olivia has maintained her foreign aid work through projects in conjunction with UNICEF. She is the curator of his legacy's film, book, and music releases. Arias has continued to work in Harrison's honor. In 2006, she published Concert for George, a celebration of the life of George Harrison, and in 2011, she published a second book based on a documentary video. Harrison joined Yoko Ono, John Lennon's wife, Paul McCartney, and Ringo Starr in controlling the Beatles' financial empire after her husband's death. As of 2021, she is one of Apple Corp's 5 directors. Third wife of Paul McCartney, Heather Mills. Heather Mills, a model who later became an activist, met Paul McCartney in 1999 at a charity event. After a police motorcycle crash in 1993, Mills' left leg was amputated below the knee. In 2002, she married Paul McCartney. Although their union was short-lived, the couple went through a tumultuous divorce in 2006, which was finally completed in 2008. Heather Mills has competed in Dancing with the Stars and Dancing on Ice, among other shows. In 2013, she also earned a World Cup silver medal in the slalom skiing event in New Zealand. However, her hopes of competing in the Paralympic Winter Games were dashed when she threatened an Olympic official. Mills is still an active animal rights activist and United Nations ambassador. So there you have it, the latest on the Beatles Wives. I hope you enjoyed the video, and remember to like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.